The victory over Ebele exposed the hollowness of Owere's proposed alliance. Chief Odumegwu, humiliated and enraged, stormed out of Ogbunike with threats of war hanging heavy in the air. King Adimora, chastened by a near disaster, realized the wisdom in Obioma's intuition. He publicly thanked Ugo for his bravery and declared his intention to seek alliances with kingdoms known for their honor and integrity. News of Obioma's defiance and Ugo's victory spread far and wide. Kings from other kingdoms, impressed by her courage and his skill, began sending emissaries, seeking not just an alliance, but also the hand of the brave princess. Obioma, however, remained hesitant. The ordeal with Ebele had shaken her trust, making her wary of empty promises and country games. Meanwhile, a quiet understanding blossomed between Obioma and Ugo. They spent more time together, training in the palace gardens, their conversation filled with a newfound respect and unspoken affection. Ever the loyal warrior continued to train relentlessly, preparing for the possibility of war with Owerri. One moonlit night, as they sped under the watchful gaze of the stars, Obioma finally voiced her concerns. "Ugo," she said, her voice breathless from exertion. What if war comes? What if? Ugo paused, his spear lowered. A warrior accepts the risk, princess. But know this, he continued, his voice low and intense. I would fight not just for Ogbunike, but for the woman who has shown me true courage. Obioma's heart skipped a beat. The air cracked with unspoken emotions. Before she could respond, a frantic Nneka burst into the garden, her face pale with fear. Princess! Riders from the border, Owerri has declared war. The peaceful training session was shattered. War drums resonated through the night, a grim counterpoint to the chirping crickets. King Adimora, his face etched with worry, addressed the court. Owerri has betrayed our trust. We must prepare for war. Ugo stepped forward, his voice ringing with conviction. We will defend Ogbunike, your majesty. We will fight for our land, for our honor, and for the future of our kingdom. Obioma, her heart heavy with the weight of responsibility, stood beside her father. The dream of a strong and honorable alliance had been shattered, replaced by the harsh reality of war. Yet, amidst the looming conflict, a flicker of hope remained. The courage she had demonstrated and the bond she shared with Ugo might just be the tools they needed to defend their kingdom and forge a future built on trust and integrity. As the first days of dawn painted the sky in hues of orange and red, the warriors of Ogbunike marched out to meet their enemy, their hearts filled with determination and a newfound sense of unity. The fate of their kingdom hung in the balance, and Obioma, the princess who dared to challenge tradition, would stand shoulder to shoulder with the warrior who had captured her heart, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them. The war raged for weeks. Ogbunike's smaller army, fueled by a fierce defensive spirit, held their ground against Owerri's larger, more aggressive forces. The war raged for weeks. Ogbunike's smaller army, fueled by a fierce defensive spirit, held their ground against Owerri's larger, more aggressive forces. Ugo, a whirlwind of steel and strategy, proved himself an exceptional leader. His bravery inspired the troops, and his tactical brilliance thwarted Owerri's attempts to breach Ogbunike's defenses. Obioma, though not on the battlefield, played a crucial role. She rallied the women of the kingdom, organizing them to care for the wounded, prepare supplies, and maintain morale. Her unwavering spirit and belief in the cause became a beacon of hope for the entire kingdom. One night, under the cover of darkness, a group of Owerri soldiers managed to infiltrate Ogbunike's camp. Their target, King Adimora. The ensuing chaos was swift and brutal. Ugo, alerted by the commotion, arrived just in time to see a lone Owerri soldier pinning the king to the ground. Without hesitation, Ugo charged. The fight was a blur of movement and clashing steel, but Ugo, fueled by a surge of loyalty and adrenaline, overpowered the soldier, sending him sprawling. As Ugo helped the king to his feet, a searing pain lunged through his shoulder. He had been grazed by the soldier's blade. The king, shaking but unharmed, grabbed Ugo's arm. "Ugo, you saved my life, but you're wounded." Ugo gritted his teeth, the pain a dull throb in his shoulder. "A minor scratch, Your Majesty. We must regroup." The next day, the news of Ugo's bravery and the king's near assassination spread throughout the camp. The soldiers, their morale already high, were further galvanized. They saw in Ugo the embodiment of courage and selflessness, a true warrior king in the making. Meanwhile, within the Owerri camp, dissent began to brew. Chief Odumegwu's thirst for conquest had blinded him to the true cost of war. His soldiers, weary of the conflict and questioning the legitimacy of their cause, started deserting. The turning point came during a fierce battle. Owerri soldiers, facing relentless onslaught of Ogbunike's forces, began to waver. Sensing an opportunity, Ugo rallied his men for a final push. Their war cry echoed across the battlefield, a surge of pride and determination fueling their attack. The Owerri army, demoralized and headless, crumbled. Odumegwu, witnessing the collapse of his forces, fled the battlefield, leaving his remaining soldiers to their fate. News of Owerri's defeat reached Ogbunike within hours. The cheers of the victorious warriors resonated through the camp, a sweet melody after weeks of hardship. Obioma, with tears of joy glistering on her cheeks, rushed to greet the returning troops. Ugo, his wound bandaged but his spirit unbroken, dismounted from his horse and met her gaze. In that silent exchange, a lifetime of unspoken emotions seemed to flow. He had fought for his kingdom, for his king, and perhaps most importantly, for the woman who had captured his heart. King Adimora, humbled by the victory, addressed the gathered crowd. He acknowledged Obioma's courage and foresight in exposing the treachery of Owerri. He also praised Ugo not just for his battlefield prowess, but for his unwavering loyalty and leadership. In the days that followed, Ogbunike celebrated their victory. In one evening, amid the celebratory clamor, Ugo approached Obioma. The setting sun cast a glow on his face, his eyes filled with a question he couldn't seem to voice. And Obioma, her heart overflowing with gratitude and love, met his gaze. "Ugo," she said softly, "you're a true warrior, a hero of Ogbunike." Ugo took a step closer, his voice barely a whisper. "And you, princess, are the bravest woman I know. You not only saved our kingdom, but you also showed me the true meaning of courage." A tender smile touched Obioma's lips. The war had tested them, forged an unbreakable bond. In that moment, under the watchful gaze of the setting sun, they knew their destiny was intertwined. The path ahead might hold challenges, but they would face them together. a warrior princess and a man who captured her heart. Months passed and peace settled over Obunike like a gentle rain. The scars of war remained a constant reminder of the sacrifices made. Yet the kingdom buzzed with a renewed sense of purpose. King Adimora, his health somewhat shaken by the assassination attempt, announced a grand celebration to honor the heroes of the war. And the counterpiece of the celebration will be Ihoma, a traditional ceremony marking the passage of a warrior into leadership. All eyes were on Ugo, the undisputed hero who had spearheaded Obunike's defense. With the Obioma, adorned with a shimmering silk dress with the colors of victory, watched from the royal balcony. Her heart swelled with pride. Clothed in ceremonial armor, stood before the assembled crowd. The king, his voice hoarse but firm, recounted Ugo's bravery and strategic brilliance. As the ceremony reached its climax, King Adimora presented Ugo with the Obunike war axe, a symbol of leadership and unwavering courage. The crowd erupted in cheers, their voice echoing through the palace. And later that evening, a grand feast was held. Laughter and clinkings of gloves filled the air. Obioma, surrounded by dignitaries and nobles, found herself stealing glances towards Ugo. He stood apart from the throng, his gaze fixed on her. Finally, unable to resist any longer, she excused herself and walked towards him. He turned a smile, lightening up his face. Ugo, Ihomeze, Obioma greeted him, using the traditional title for a warrior leader. Ugo bowed his head slightly. Nem, he responded, his voice warm. They fell into a comfortable silence, a shared understanding simmering between them. Thank you, Obioma finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper, for everything. Ugo took her hands, his touch sending a shiver down her spine. We fought together, princess. It was a victory for all of the Obunike. But you were the one who led us, Obioma countered, her eyes locked on his. Ugo squeezed her hand gently, and you, princess, were the heart that kept us going. Your courage inspired us all. Their gazes held a silent conversation. Obioma, no longer the sheltered princess, was a woman who had faced adversity and emerged stronger. Ugo, the valiant warrior, had a heart filled with tenderness and respect. The music swelled, a gentle melody inviting couples to the dance floor. Obioma, her cheeks flushed, looked up at Ugo. Would you care to dance? Ihomeze, she asked, a hint of challenge in her voice. Ugo smiled widely. I would be honored, Nem, he replied, extending his hand. They walked onto the dance floor, their movements graceful and in synchrony. As they swayed to the music, a comfortable silence settled between them. And in that moment, it was clear their bond, forged in the fires of war, had blossomed into something deeper. The future stretched before them, filled with the promise of peace, love, and a kingdom to rule together.